Good afternoon. I'm Senator Donzella James, and this is an official Urban Affairs Committee meeting of the State Senate. Before I begin, I'd like to ask one of our members to lead us in prayer, and then we'll have introductions of those who are on the podium. Senator Dr. Michael Redd.
Thank you very much. Would everybody bow their head and close one eye? Oh, Lord, we thank you for this opportunity to come together and work towards our goal in terms of housing for people in our communities. You know, housing is the backbone of family. And when you have family together intact under one roof, it makes a big difference moving down the road. So give us the wisdom, Lord, to work through our issues here and give us your blessing. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. And since you have the mic, will you introduce yourself?
Senator Rhett, R-H-E-T-T from Cobb County, Georgia. Been in the legislature now for about 9 years. Retired Air Force, retired educator, and here to help you. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's Cobb County, y'all.
Yes. You're number what, Ted?
Senator Sheikh Rahman from Gwinnett County, one of the best county in Metro Atlanta. I have to be biased anyway. I represent 5th District in Gwinnett, part of Lawrenceville, Lilburn, Norcross, Tucker, Duluth, and one of the most diverse state Senate district in the country, as a matter of fact. I have people from more than 100 different countries, speak 100 different languages. And I would like to thank our chairwoman, Senator Donzella James, for taking up these important issues in housing crisis. It's not only in Metro Atlanta or state of Georgia, it's a national problem. There are a lot of things going on that we know that is very important to us. You know, friends and family and neighbor, our constituents, all are suffering because of the housing crisis that we have. And we need to do a better job and see what you can do in terms of, you know, relief that we can provide. And that's why we're here, I believe. Thank you very much. And thank you for you all for participating.
Thank you. And I'd like for our legislative council, starting at this end, to say hello and give your name and any other information you'd like to give. Okay, number 15.
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Christy Farhoudi. I'm Deputy Legislative Counsel. I drafted some of the bills that we may be discussing today.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Holly Carter. I am the staff counsel for this committee. My name is Holly Carter, and I also am Deputy Legislative Counsel with the Office of Legislative Counsel.
Excellent. Thank you. And Diego.
Hi, I'm Diego Santana. I'm Senator James's legislative assistant.
Thank you. And our research. I call you master, our man. He gives us all the information. Thank you.
Afternoon. My name is Nathan Corbett, and I'm with the Senate Research Office. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Thank you. And we have a state representative. Number 4.
Greetings, everyone. I'm State Representative Mandy Shea Thomas from the 65th District. I serve as Fulton, Douglas, and Coweta County. Thank you, Senator, for having this committee today.
You're very welcome. And
I also want to take the opportunity to recognize Representative Billy Mitchell, who's in the audience. He's also the former chair of the National Legislative Black Caucus, and he did a fine job as that leader.
we thank all of you for being here. We also have our media. Which number? Go ahead.
I'm Sam White from Senate Press. I'm in charge of the Zoom and the stream and everything, and excited to be here. So thank you.
You're welcome. And we also have online with us, one of our members, Senator Emmanuel Jones. Are you there? I don't know how to unmute this. He is with us and could not, if he chimes in later and asks questions, then you'll hear from him. But that's Senator Emmanuel Jones. He has Henry County, some of DeKalb County, and he's a great leader in the state Senate. Also, do we have our mayor from Union City here yet? He wants to speak when he comes, but he hasn't arrived yet, and he has to leave right back out. So we'll squeeze him in off of the list, if you don't mind. Also, we have Dory Henry, who is my chief of staff, and we have my aide. Where are you? Elena Jones in the back. There she is. We're going to get started now. Yes. I'm about to. Oh, he's online, right? Very good. We have our Georgia Legislative Black Caucus Chairman, who is in Savannah now. That's why many people could not get here. They're in other cities and could not make it today. But Mr. Chair, will you say hello and introduce yourself?
Good afternoon to my great senator and friend, and as well as the chair of the Senate Urban Affairs Committee, and to members of the Senate Urban Affairs Committee, this distinguished body. I'm elated to greet you on behalf of the Georgia Legislative Black Caucus, the largest Black caucus in the nation. And I commend you for holding this hearing on today, as the supply of affordable housing units is at an extreme low in Georgia. In the wake of the pandemic, leading to higher rates of rent and greater homelessness among single adults and families. Madam Chair, one of the things we county working with the Georgia Department of Community Affairs in the last 6 years, we realized the crisis of affordable housing. And so we have had several opportunities to get people into housing, giving them down payment assistance from $15,000 to $7,500 with the Georgia Department of Community Affairs and the city of Savannah. And I'm happy to report that under my tenure of the last 6 years, we've got 252 people into moving from renting houses to owning houses. And so there's a housing crisis in Georgia. People cannot afford to pay the astronomical rent fees. The song used to say, a house is not a home. They cannot afford to have a home when they cannot afford to pay for the rent for the house. And so this hearing is essential, even as we have HOAs that charge astronomical fees and do not provide the services. So we're facing a tremendous dilemma, and I'm prayerful and hopeful that this committee will provide the opportunity for Georgians to voice their opinions and to support viable legislation that you have on the table. We commend you for this much needed hearing, and the Georgia Legislative Caucus is fully supportive of moving Georgia forward to make housing a reality for those citizens in Georgia. Thank you for the opportunity, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And we appreciate you taking time to be on this line, and wish you could be here in person, because I'm sure that those who did come today would like to speak with you in person. So maybe we can have another hearing before the session starts in January to give them that opportunity. Thank you. And I do have a message from, thank you very much. And I have a message from Senator Emmanuel Jones. For some reason, he cannot get in on Zoom. So he is watching us on the stream, and he will continue to be here and try to ask questions by way of text. So we're going to get started with First of all, we have three important bills. Senate Bill 125, which puts restrictions on rent regulations by local government. Senate Bill 29, the Property Owners Association Certificates of Good Standing for Payment of Annual Assessments. And SR 37 HOA, the Senate Property Owners Association and Homeowners Associations, Condominium Associations Committee. And SR 250, which will be the Hospital Authority Bill that many of you already heard about. And you know we have a shortage now that many of our hospitals have closed all over the state. Right here in metropolitan Atlanta, we have two major hospitals that closed within the last year, less than a year. And we are talking to East Point and the city of South Fulton and other cities about forming a hospital authority. So this bill is going to talk about that. And we already have doctors who are not employed anymore in a hospital and have their own businesses, but they're ready to come back into the community and take care of us. Something is going on with this mic is cutting in and out. So I hope that you can hear me with my hoarseness because of the allergies out there. So thank you. The first thing I want to talk about, though, is Senate Bill 125. It will repeal the Georgia Code and allow local governments to regulate their city's rental costs in the state of Georgia. As many of you know, we have a ban in the state of Georgia since the 70s on rent control. And we are attempting to lift that ban so that municipalities and counties can be able to take care of their own cities and work with their residents. And it's very important that we look at this to stop rental leases and bills that are doubling and tripling and causing foreclosures or evictions. So we're going to make sure that we look at that. Not only is this a problem throughout Georgia, but it's also throughout the nation. And without a cap placed on rent, cost skyrockets and causes many social issues in communities around the state and the nation. So most rent increase comes from companies out of the state of Georgia who own rental properties in Georgia. While we cannot deal with every single rent issue in this legislation, this is a good start to combat this very important issue. As the cost of living increases, we're seeing more issues with individuals and families struggling to pay rent in both metro and rural areas. And consequently, many of those people cannot afford it anymore and have become homeless and staying in day hotels when they can afford to do that. Those with fixed incomes also struggle while rental costs have no fixed cap. So we want to look at lifting this ban so that if cities and if municipalities want to put a ban or a cap or something on rent, they'll be able to do it so that they can take care of their residents. And so the goal of the bill is to expand the ability for local governments to regulate renters who may try to price gouge tenants in our state. This is unacceptable, but it's happening all over. So this bill was referred to the Senate Committee on State and Local Government Operations. Someone sent a text out saying that this bill died in the Senate this year and that we voted against it. That is not Senate Bill 125 that has to do with rent control. It may have been a Senate Bill 125 in the past that was voted on, but they're putting the bill up. So ignore that. This bill is alive and well. And in January, I hope, with the support of others who are listening to this problem and who agree, we will come back or we'll send letters to the other legislators so we can pass this legislation. Also, Senate Bill 29, the Property Owners Association Certificates of Good Standing for Payments of Annual Assessments. We're looking at different ways to help our HOAs. We have a problem with many people who are part of HOAs who are being threatened to lose their homes. And many have already lost their condominiums and homes. And this has been happening for far too long. So we need to make sure that HOAs protecting the citizens that live there and not abusing them and not stealing homes, as people have sent me so many letters and said that it's happening. So we want to make sure that we have confronted this. We've had 3 hearings last year about it. And so in January, we introduced this legislation. So hopefully this year, when January starts, we will begin again and this time be successful in passing this legislation. We have many people who have signed up to speak today, and this will be an official record that will be shared with other senators who will have to vote on this and other House members. So we thank you for coming who want to speak. Is the mayor here from Union City yet? Okay, well, he's not here yet. So we're going to get started with our 2 representatives and then we'll go to the list. Representative Thomas, will you yield to your leader of the House? Yeah. Okay, please. Chairman Mitchell, please come up and tell us why you're here today. And you will sit. Right here, please, in the witness seat. And those who are on the list, you'll come up and everybody will have 3 minutes, but I can't give my chairman 3 minutes.
Sure. Good.
I might not get anything passed anymore.
Good.
No, we know better.
Madam Chair, members of the committee,
Mhm.
another guest. It's good to be here with you on this important issue. I want to applaud you for taking up this issue. I will say to you that here in the Atlanta metropolitan area, if not this entire state, this is an issue that we're going to have to come to terms with. As you know, Georgia is one of the fastest growing states in this nation. The reality is since 2010 and 2020, the last census, 1 million new people have moved to Georgia. And it is not de-escalating. And so what we're faced with is we have developers who are developing property. We have because of the demand on property, the ever escalating property values are really pricing so many folk out of their homes. One of my greatest interests is what we're doing to our seniors in this state. I will tell you, I was just talking to Attorney Ampley before here, and she presented me with an article that was on the front page of the Wall Street Journal dealing with this very issue. We now have, because of ever escalating property values, we now have seniors who are paying more for taxes than they paid for their mortgage. We are literally pricing senior citizens who, generally speaking, don't have an income that could sustain the ever increasing property tax values. So that is something that we're going to have to come to terms with rather quickly. One of the things that I'm toying with in the county of DeKalb, in which I serve, is we have a property tax freeze on your property. You can elect to freeze your taxes on your property value. So as long as you live in the house, you will not pay any more on your millage as a result However, 90%, as many of you homeowners know, 90% of the taxes you pay are to school board taxes. And it is substantial. So I'm toying with the idea of placing a tax freeze even on school taxes. Now, my school board members and superintendents, they get a little uneasy about that. And I must say, I'm sympathetic to their argument, because even if you don't have children in the school system, you want the schools to be the absolute best they can be. Where there are good schools, the property values are higher. Where there are good schools, crime rates are lower. But we've got to find a way to where we can address the needs of seniors. We don't want to have senior citizens who are homeless. We don't want to have that on our. Now, as for this notion of HOAs, Georgia is one of the few states in this nation which allow HOAs, homeowner associations, to literally foreclose on property for late homeowners association fees. Now, I think that's draconian law. I think those who put together our form of government in no way intended that to be should be the case. Now, I don't have a problem with HOAs assessing penalties. I don't have a problem with HOAs even placing liens to make certain that they get their proceeds on the sale of the house. But to literally foreclose on a piece of property because they are a homeowners association fee, I think is bad legislation. I think we should join the overwhelming majority of states in this nation which do not allow that. Madam Chair, once again, I applaud you all for doing this great work. I think that long after our service is finished, if we can attack this homeless problem, if we can attack what we're doing to price people out of their homes, we will have done a good thing for this state and generations to come. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much. But let me tell you though, if once you get $2,000 worth of liens against you, that house can go up on the courthouse steps.
Absolutely.
And be sold from up under you.
Right.
You can own the house
Right.
and just owe HOA fees.
Right.
Or and they can take your property.
Absolutely.
And it might not, $2,000 worth of liens, your house could be worth $500,000 or more.
Right. Yeah.
It doesn't matter the cost of it.
Yeah.
So we have to make some serious changes.
Right. And there's only about 8 states in the nation which allow that.
Correct.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Thank you. And Ms. Representative Mandisha Thomas. Oh, gotta.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. As a legislator, we pretty much look at scenarios, real life scenarios of people, of our constituents across the state of Georgia, and data. And that's what our votes are namely voted on, by the data and the real life scenarios. So I service 3 counties and 6 cities. What I'm looking at is each city individually and how the planning and zoning departments are working. I'm sorry, this is going in and out, and how the planning and zoning departments are working towards this issue. For an example, I have a constituent in August. She's a senior, 76 years old. Her rent was $800. When she went to renew her lease, her rent was $1,800. This was this month. Where is she going to go? Where is she going to go at 76 years old, retired, disabled, and her rent has doubled and supersedes her Social Security benefits? Where is she going to go? So my commitment is to work with all 6 sets of those mayor and councils and urging them to make decisions like Senate Bill 125, and providing them as much resources that I can bring to, and even with sponsorships, we're trying to encourage other entities to pull together as consortiums of nonprofits to help these seniors pay for their homes. The monies that we receive from COVID-19 through the ARPA monies, we'll never see that again. That type of money did help out a lot of people, but we're coming out of the pandemic. And like I said, we may not see that type of money ever again in our lifetimes. So it's up to us as legislators to put forth legislation like this, Senator, thank you, and to support it as much as we can. I know that our Mayor Vince Williams from the city of Union City should be coming, and he's here now. Okay, so I won't think. Hello, Mayor. So I won't talk about that, but there is a development that is in Union City that is part of a solution, and I will yield to him now, Senator. It's a subdivision. It's a rental subdivision, but I'll let him speak more about it. I'm sure that's part of his agenda. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Mayor Vince Williams, will you come up to the witness seat up there for a moment and share with us? Thank you so much for being here.
Yes, ma'am. No, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to share. You know, this is such an important issue in all of our communities. You know, housing is the biggest issue outside of public safety that we deal with right now. You know, you have several issues that are extremely important. Access to healthcare is one, so we won't go there. But anyway, certainly the issue around rent control. I'm going to let you all handle that. But one of the things that we wanted to make sure is that we had developments coming to our community for housing, which would house many of those men and women and families who want to have a decent place to call home, but at a rent that they could afford. You know, this is a beautiful development, and we got families who have already moved in, and we're looking forward to hopefully mimicking that, not just in Union City, but around the metro area. You know, when you think about men and women who work hard every day and they don't feel good about going to the place that they unfortunately have to call home. And it's incumbent upon us as leaders to make sure that we fight our longest and hardest to make sure that these developers listen to what the local leaders are saying, because we know what's best for our communities. And certainly the representative was certainly correct when she talked about the historic ARPA funds. That is history. Now, will it come back around? Probably not in our lifetime. However, we've got to make sure that we're doing the due diligence to make sure that we provide adequate housing for men and women. They are of all colors, folks. This is not just Black and brown communities. This is all of us. So we got to make sure that we're doing the right things, especially when we come to this beautiful gold dome, because the men and women that elected you to get here and do the work, they elected the local leaders as well. So we want to make sure that we're working arm in arm, shoulder to shoulder, to make sure that we're creating, you know, a future of stable housing. Yeah, we know we have a housing issue. We know that. And it's not just in Georgia, it's around the world. Not just in these United States, it's around the world. I was in Israel, in China, everybody is grappling with this. So we got to make sure that we're doing the right things. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Members, do you have any questions, comments to our mayor? No? Yes.
I mean, just to piggyback off what you said. And I think that was very important, that one word, sustainable.
Yes.
We need to have sustainable housing that
Exactly.
sustains
Yeah.
our constituents. And I mean, it's just like the Fulton County Jail right now. We are in a state of emergency.
Well, I do want, you know, that is very important, you know, because it's easy for developers to come in and build crap and move on.
Mhm.
But it's incumbent upon the local leaders to make sure that they're going back in. And I tell my folks always, We're no longer Mayberry. So we're not allowing certain things that would be allowed 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago. We got to make sure that we go in and create the ordinances and the zonings that are needed and the requirements of materials that these developers are using so that these houses will be sustainable, safe, but also something that people will be proud of. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. That's going to be a part of our record as we move forward in trying to resolve this issue. And Margie McLeod, are you in here? Okay, can you bring her? She put two people's names on here that I can't make out. Margie, who are the two people? Is Jody here? And who is the, hi, please come sit up in the witness seat, Jody. And where's the guy? What's his name?
Mullen, is not there.
And
He could do David.
and
Oh,
Mr.
yeah.
Washington,
He know
you're,
about rent.
yeah, he's gonna make a statement next. And then we call him from this list that we have in front of us. And everybody will have 3 minutes, so if you can,
It's better than to City
but
Hall.
you can just show your shirt and we know what you want, okay?
Well, you gave us, but City Hall give me 2 minutes. So I'm glad I got 3 minutes. And I'm sorry. But the reason why we brought this for Senate Donzella Jane, for Senate Bill 125 for rent control, because we need it's a need. And I don't have to go and talk. When you walk, you see your city. You see how your city look. You see how much homeless is out there. People cannot make 3 times the rent. That's where our problem is. And you know, minimum wages, y'all know what minimum wages is. So we never could be able, because people in the neighborhood, they don't 45,000 a year. Some don't make that. So rent is constantly going up. And I know we could talk. You see it out in the streets. People living in their cars, people sleeping on the street. Only thing I could say, let's don't be like California. California learned the hard way. Yes, guess what California did? They got rent control. And what I'm saying, I keep saying, we could do this. Let's don't wait till they be sleeping out at your house, because that's what happened to California. We know New York have it, but the point is, this is Georgia, this is Atlanta. We want to be like New York, so let's do New York laws. We could do this. And it's sad that we have children, schools being closed because the children's moving out of the neighborhood because they can't not afford the rent. You know, food prices going up. You remember a dozen of eggs was how much now? But it went down. A lot of people got put, it's all for food stamps now, Medicaid, Medicare. So it's a cry out there. I want to take this shirt off. I want to take this shirt off. No, I'm not going to take it off. What I mean that I want to be,
What did you say, Senator?
we have rent control. I've stopped here. I can't do it. I can't do it. The students need it. It's not about the color. If you ain't green, you don't fit in. If you don't have the money, we have and have not. We got to stop this. You say you love your city. If you love your city so much and you love your state, we put you in office. We keep telling us, I don't care you Republican, Democrat, it's hurting everybody's family, and especially the children. And you see the children out in the street, and then guess what? Guess who's recruiting? You got more people stripping than they ever did before. I'm not mad at them because they're doing things that they don't want to do because they got to make rent. They got to make rent. And you got a lot of single mothers out here. Help them.
Well put, and your 3 minutes.
I'm sorry.
But we appreciate you and all your efforts. Thank you. And before you speak and introduce yourself, we have another one of our members here, Senator Nikki Merritt from the 9th District. Please introduce yourself. Which one is it now?
Y'all hear me? Good afternoon, everyone. I apologize. I am late. I was at an event. It was a healthy grandparents event. And as you know, many of our grandparents today are primary caregivers. So we're happy for organizations like that. So I was happy to be out and support them. So I apologize for my tardiness, but my name is Senator Nikki Merritt. I represent the 9th district that is on the east side of Gwinnett County, and looking forward to our conversations today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator. And Jody, will you please, and I call you Jody because I know your first name, but not disrespecting you. Please go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us the things that you do and what you've been doing as far as rent control is concerned.
Okay, thank you for having us here, Donzella. And I want to thank you so much for reaching out to help the people. I'm Jody Williams. I'm with Miss Margie. I assist her. The name of her organization is Number One Next of Kin. My organization, my nonprofit is, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh. Go ahead.
Is Maturing Young Women and Men of Fulton and DeKalb County. There's a lot going on here with this rent out of control. My daughter is a college student. She has 5 roommates because they can't afford the rent. First, she had 2. And then when their rent went up $500, instead of moving, they recruited people to move in with them.
Mhm.
She's a student at Emory. And she don't want to have to leave school, but she has to be close because she don't have housing on the campus. I want to speak about the elderly. The young lady, the senator, spoke on grandmothers. Well, the city is moving our grandmothers out of these apartments. They're getting with these investors, selling the property, the housing authorities, selling the property to investors, and our elders are having to leave their homes and they have no place to go. Like Miss Margie spoke on the people, you see them when you go to the grocery stores, the people with all that stuff in their car, filled to capacity. These are the people who can't afford their rent. I met a young man the other day who is a firefighter, and he was already paying $1,300 for rent, and his rent increased $300 and he couldn't afford to pay it. So now he's living in his car. These people in these tent cities, they don't want to leave Atlanta. Atlanta is all that some of them know. You can't move them out of the city because you're doing a new thing, gentrification. You can't do that to them. They want to be here. This is their city. So I pray and I hope that this bill passes. Can you guys hear me? Can you still hear me? Okay. We need to do something about this. We need to come together and fight for the people. The people are who elect you all. If they all move out of the city, who's going to vote for you guys? So we need help. We need you guys to support this bill 125. Support it. I mean, people tell me, well, I have property too, but I care about the people. When you care about the people, you don't want to raise things so high that they can't afford it. They can't afford to live in it. So please help the people. Help them. They need your help. We're begging you guys to help the people and vote for this bill because they can't afford to live anymore in this city. Help the people. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Thank you, Ms. Williams. And you're right. Just like you own property, so do I. My late husband and I had 14 pieces of property that we were renting, but we never gouged anyone. We never tried to put people out and foreclose on them and evict them unless they were not following the rules. And we gave them plenty of time. So there are a lot of good landlords around. And this is not to punish anyone. This legislation is to make sure that we take care of the residents. So thank you. Would you like to
Yes.
introduce yourself?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for having me today. My name is David Washington, and I'm a qualifying broker for Kipling Real Estate Consultants and Advisors. I'm not here necessarily on rent control. I wish there was something that could be done. I know that's largely pertaining to the economics. I specialize in foreclosures. I specialize in keeping people in their homes. And a lot of people become tenants as a result of losing their properties to foreclosure. And so I'm not sure what type of legislation could be put in place, but HOAs are foreclosing on homeowners at a record level at this point. The issue with HOAs, and I've testified for a client, she's 91 years old. She never missed a payment. She owns 7 properties over at Peyton Village, never missed a payment on HOA. Somehow or another, they managed to foreclose on her for delinquent HOA dues. I went all the way back to 2016 as far as the banks will allow us to go, and looked at every month. She never missed a payment, never was late. But somehow or another, she owed $33,000 on one unit, $16,000 on another, $12,000 on another. There's no statutory right of redemption on the mortgage foreclosures in Georgia. And when HOAs choose to foreclose, or if it's written in their covenants for them to be able to foreclose, again, they're just following the law. Georgia is a creditor-friendly state, period. It is not designed to, if life happens in a 30-year period of time that you're financing your mortgage, something in life is going to happen. Somebody's going to get COVID, a car accident, a divorce. I lost 13 properties when I was divorced, and my wife. Thank goodness I did it strategically, and my income wasn't that much affected, but you had a death of a spouse. Life happens. There are some provisions with mortgage companies called loan modifications, called forbearance agreements, things that you can do with mortgages that do not exist with HOAs. If you owe $5,000 to HOA, they will foreclose on you. There is no statutory right of redemption. Someone is going to bid on your property, and now they own your home just that quick. The whole process can be done in less than 90 days. And unfortunately, once that property goes to auction, someone probably will overbid on the property, and a previous homeowner will get the overage, but their mortgage, their home, their place they raise their kids, everything has been lost. These are not vacuum cleaners that we're selling. These are people's homes and their lives. So what I would like to see is something in the provision where HOAs can have some requirements to help homeowners that's facing this dilemma. People don't get up in the morning and choose not to pay their bills. Something happens for them not to be able to pay their bill. A car accident, a death in a family. I lost my mother. And when my mother died, it didn't affect me financially because I paid for her funeral and all that. But thank God I was one of those kind of kids that did that. But I was depressed for 2 years and didn't care about stuff. And at the end of the day, life happens. What requirements are there for HOAs to be accountable when they are foreclosing on people, and there is nothing that the homeowner can do? Everything as far as the law, as far as the state of Georgia, is in their favor. So I testified in behalf of this client. The judge had he had to follow the law. So the owner of the HOA, the president of the HOA ended up buying this woman's 6 properties that went to foreclosure. I thought that was a serious conflict of interest. But because there's nothing in the law that says this is prohibited, or he just took advantage and ended up taking this lady's property. So I pray that something could be done with this legislative body that can help homeowners that are facing these kind of issues. I know this is a much bigger picture than what you all are in control of, but what you can do, I would like for something to be done, if at all possible.
We are. Thank you very much. We are attempting to do that with this legislation.
Yes.
since I'm hoarse, I won't talk much, but I'd like to get an appointment with you.
Yes, ma'am.
And we sit down and talk because you're a wealth of knowledge in this area. And we want to make sure that we're protecting everyone,
Understood.
the land owners and the property owners, everyone.
Yes, ma'am.
And definitely those who are being foreclosed on, evicted from their properties
Mhm.
are either becoming homeless or in a day hotel
Mhm.
as long as they can afford to. But the bottom line is the rent keeps increasing if they find a place to rent. And many, and the 91-year-old woman that you were talking about, I know 3 that were in their 90s. And they had homes all these years, had paid for them. They got behind on HOA only. They had paid their mortgages off completely
Mhm.
and they were paying their taxes.
Mhm.
But they lost,
Their
they ended up
properties. Mhm.
losing their properties. And that was another reason why I'm working aggressively to
Yes.
change these laws. So with your help and with the help of the experts in this area, we hope that we can bring a package to this legislature in January that will make sure that we start protecting the residents.
Understood. Thank you.
So do we have any questions, Senator? How about,
Well, Michael, thank you for testifying. Thank you for
gotcha.
being here and speaking to us. And I'd like to, whenever you meet, I'd like to meet too,
Mhm.
and make sure we understand a little bit where you come from, since you get all this experience
Mhm.
dealing with these issues. And I think I have some issues with HOA too.
Yes,
So I think it's very important that I'll be part of this conversation
understood.
for my, my education.
Excellent. Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Thank you.
Senator Merritt, did you want to ask any questions? If so, mash your button whenever. Thank you. The next person is that we just had, Mr. Washington. Who is this? Right here. I know that the first person that was in this hall with me for a whole hour was Mr. Bolton, Mr. Jerry Bolton. So your name somehow is on the last sheet, but I'm gonna ask you to come up now. And I remember when we were talking about this issue on the radio the other day, you called in. So please come and share with us. And please, everyone, we have 3 minutes and we do have a timer.
I promise you,
Okay.
I'll stay within my time.
Thank you.
To Madam James, Chairman James, and your constituents and your associates, and to my fellow citizens, I greet you all today. I'm listening to what you all are discussing, and I definitely can attest to the fact that I am one of those persons who endured the 2008 real estate crisis. Okay, I did lose some property there, and I thought I was, on the up and up and knew everything. But sometimes you can just miss little fine details that are attached to these tremendously misunderstood contracts and the clauses that are hidden in there that if you don't have a very good lawyer, you will miss. Okay, but bring it up to today. I am one of those persons who happen to fall into this current crisis of being a senior citizen. I was given a notice of non-renewal by the landlord I was renting on. They had been in that particular establishment for about 15 years. And this happened to have been in Union City. Not the mayor's fault, not your fault, Mayor. Okay, this was an investor, and she came in. She bought the property and said that I'm sorry, sir. I understand you're on fixed income, and I don't think you will be able to afford my increase. I said, well, what is your increase? She increased the rent by not twice, not 2 times, but 3 times them. Now I'm on fixed income. Okay. Some of the companies that I work for, the pension doesn't kick in until I'm almost in my middle 70s. So, even with that, it still will not be comfortable to try to deal with what the prices are in real estate right now. Okay. I'm just saying that to say this. I feel for those who are like me. See, I'm not out here just looking around, I'm in it. So I know what it actually feels like to have to live out your vehicle being a senior person. And it's very heartbreaking to see senior citizens, really to see anybody out here, because if we have to deal with this thing honestly, no one in America, no one in this country should be homeless. No one. The tremendous wealth that's here, and you better believe me, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what your belief are. I'm not trying to take it to a religious thing, but you better believe somebody up there see all of this. Okay? These atrocities that are happening all over the world are not by coincidence, and they're not by conspiracy theory design. Okay? Get with it. Whatever I can do, ma'am, to help in this process, even if y'all need my big, powerful voice, I don't need a microphone. To help in this process and to help speak out, I will do it. And I do thank you all so much for what you're doing and what you're attempting to do. And may you all be blessed in your endeavors in helping us in this crisis, because we do need rent control. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bolton.
Yes.
Next, Ms. Karen Thompson. Karen Thomas. And we just might need your voice in January. So let's talk before the.
Happy to help.
Thank you very much. We definitely, and I know you because you went to Morris Brown College. And you're not that much of a senior citizen now, but we were over there together. So anyway, barely a senior citizen. All right. Excuse me. So Ms. Thomas.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much for being here with the Condominium Association.
That's correct.
Go ahead.
Good afternoon to everyone, and thank you, Senator James, for this opportunity, and to everyone, good afternoon. I am here as I was listening to the realtors speak about HOAs and how detrimental it is for us to have oversight. I did review, I believe it's House Bill 303. Okay, and in going through the bill, what I'll say is
You're
this.
saying the 303.
Is it 303 or was it?
You're talking about the HO, the 404 over in the
The
house?
one for HOAs and PO.
HO, okay, yeah. Yes. that's it.
Okay,
It's
so
several bills out here, but this we can talk about because we're talking about possibly merging some of these bills.
yes.
Yeah, please.
Okay, so speaking from experience, I too bought into homeowners community. I am from Clayton County, Georgia. I live in the city of Morrow. City of Morrow is approximately 6,000 in population. And in buying into the condo community, of course, the lender has requirements. That means that there has to be a certain amount of reserves and there has to be a certain amount of owner occupancy for you to get that loan. And over the years, I've only been there 5 years. And in 5 years' time, I have learned that the system of intimacy between those who are supposed to protect us, those who are supposed to ensure that maintenance is provided for us, and the association as a whole has taken their own way of systematically suppressing, oppressing the association until you just no longer have the wherewithal to even fight back. So we're at a stage where nobody is really wanting to fight back. And so hearing about the fight, I too ended up in a situation where, thank God, I knew about home modifications. Otherwise, I too would have lost my property. You can get a letter from an attorney regarding your water bill, and your water bill is $50, $100, but they're going to charge you $50 for generating that letter. So now I got to pay for the letter you're sending me, and then I got to pay the water bill. It's not a big deal, but the process in itself causes other people financial hardships to keep them from to be able to afford their property. Now, I did know to get a modification. And because I got a modification, I was able to keep my property. I had to file a Chapter 13. I'm 61 years old. I need to retire soon. So thank God I versed myself on what to do to prepare myself for this end. However, we still have this situation, and I believe that HOA POA reform mentioned something about an ombudsman, someone to watch over when the attorneys are no longer representing the HOA. They're working with the board. I shouldn't have to 5 years badger you, just pressure wash our sidewalks, pressure wash our fences, repair a fence, fix our roads. I actually had to contact the county myself because the response I would get from the management company is going to be resistance. The board itself, out of the 4 board members, only 1 resides in our community.
Oh, okay.
There
So you have board members who have nothing to do with your association? They're not members.
They are,
They own
but they
property.
don't reside there.
Okay, they own property, but
They own,
okay.
not only do they own property, but somewhere along the way, they took the liberty to purchase more property than the percentage allows, thus suppressing our votes. So if we got board members who don't live in our county, you can't vote on our county, you can't vote in our city to bring change that way. And then you live in your community where you can affect change. However, you got the majority of unit ownership that should not have been allowed. So those who don't live there, who are board members, you got 9 units, you got a person that owns 7 units, you got a person that owns 5 units. That's 21 votes that we need to affect change. And because we can't, or we are learning that another issue is because of no oversight, this ombudsman would be great to keep up with the address information of some of these owners. So when you do a property search, I shouldn't find an LLC that's hidden under an LLC, that's hidden under an LLC. And all 3 of them have different addresses or in and out of state. We got property owners who live in Virginia. I got PO boxes in Virginia, but you hold 6 votes. I could use those votes to make a change. And so with the presence of an ombudsman, we have someone to watch over those who should be watching over us.
Yes,
and
we
instead
definitely
are
so
taking
you do
advantage.
like your time is up, but you do like the ombudsman portion?
Yes,
Great,
Senator.
great,
We
because
definitely need an ombudsman.
Okay, great.
And I am for that.
Okay, thank you. Wait, before you leave, senators, do you have any questions or comments? No, Senator. Thank you very much, Ms. Thomas, for your comments. Mr. David Bozon and Jessica Naves is after you.
Okay.
Are y'all together? You want to?
No.
You're 2 different people.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
Let's see. Good afternoon, honorable state senators and everyone who's in attendance. I appreciate all of y'all coming by. And I'm so glad that Mr. Washington talked about what he did. I'm also going to talk about House Bill 2937. I think it was Viola Davis's 303.
Yes.
These are things that are essential. These are things that are essential. So my name is David Matthew Bazone. That's how we say it. We're from the Belmont Park subdivision in Noonan, Georgia, the city of Holmes.
Okay.
So what I wanted to speak about is we've been working, first of all, our partners for Mr. Rahman. I would point you in the direction I'd love to speak to you. We've been working with our mentors, Patrick Johnson from Hurling, which is a national advocacy organization for mismanaged HOAs. We've also been working with Miss Rylene Schifano, who runs HOA Fight Club, as well as HOA United. This is a movement that is starting. because it is a grassroots level injustice that has put the power. My grandfather used to have a shirt that said, "Power corrupts, but absolute power is kind of cool." And this is what happens because we have fertile grounds.
Corruptly quickly.
We have fertile ground. I love that
without
shirt.
demand.
We have fertile grounds for people who are neighbors who may or may not be legitimately elected into their positions of power. And it is power because they can reach into the most sacrosanct of American institutions, which is the American home.
Okay.
And they can take it away from you. So I wanted to mention, and excuse my notes. I promise you I'm not texting.
No, you can share your notes with us if you would like at the end.
I would like to. yes.
Okay, because we're going to have a meeting afterwards and talk about it.
We can do that. Thank you so much. So I wanted to mention, so Florida HB 919, I wanted to bring it because this is not just a Georgia issue. It was signed and I believe by the governor. I think it's going to be passed on October 1st. I was checking it last night and I'm glad that y'all are with the vanguard of people who are trying to make changes with HOAs and their regulation. So this bill 919 was in response to the hammocks community. You may have seen in the news. They embezzled around $2 million by writing checks to shell companies. So they have a vendor. They would write a check to the vendor and the vendor was themselves. And the sad part is that with lack of regulation, this could happen in our state. I don't have the benefit of evidence, but I would be so bold to say that this does happen in our state, maybe not at the same level. So I just wanted to mention that. I want to quote Ms. Catherine Fernandez-Rundle, the Miami-Dade state attorney. She says, HB 919 reduces election fraud. It gives owners greater access to records. It outlaws kickbacks. We are recommending criminalizing fraudulent activity in associations, elections. Shockingly, fraudulent election activity in association elections, even blatant frauds, are not crimes. So I'm glad that Ms. Doncella James and everyone else who's supporting these kinds of bills are working towards this, especially the mandated mediation is a good solution. I think that it would be good to have a neutral party, if not a division, that would be able to alleviate homeowners going against the house, because when you play against the HOA, the house always wins. They have their own dedicated attorneys that they will tell you, I do not represent individuals. I do not represent you. I represent the HOA. So those are what we wanted to bring forward. We need a regulatory body, and the vacuum of lack of regulation of HOAs is exactly what my grandfather's shirt used to talk about. Because unfortunately, people are people, right? And if we don't have someone to keep them responsible, sometimes they become really irresponsible, foreclose on your homes, liens, and all of these other consequences. So I appreciate your time today.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions?
No questions. I say you can contact me at my office and we can make an arrangement and sit down and go over the two.
I would love that.
Definitely.
Yeah, and Ms. Doncella James, I would love to do a HOA boot camp with you at some point as well. That education is just essential, the way that you're working with Correll Driscoll with HOA Alliance. It's awesome.
Yes, and Douglas County, and which is part of my district as well, has a great, very strong HOA boot camp. And so we're starting them all around the state.
Right.
And many of the elected officials of those cities or counties are the ones who are working with us. And that's hands-on, and they're right there in that community, the local community. So yes.
It's a great education.
Yes, so make sure you get with Diego and we work together on that. I look forward to working with you and addressing some of the concerns that you mentioned are not in this legislation. But as I mentioned in the beginning, we can't address everything and erase everything right away, but we can start one at a time. And so we're looking at how to prioritize what we're pushing for first. Thank you very much.
I appreciate the steps you're taking. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
You're welcome. Miss Jessica Naves.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. My name is Jessica Navas. I'm from Coweta County, and I live in the city of Homs, Nuna. I purchased a property back in 2018. We just learned about an HOA community when we were just signing the documentation at the closing. Neither the realtor nor the attorneys release this information unless I stop the paper and I say, will you explain to me what is an HOA? And it was just 2 minutes of explanation. Of course, having my 6 months baby, I couldn't retract from that moment and I just signed. It has been 5 years. 5 years in an HOA in Coweta County. We have an HOA board president, an HOA board members that never call for meetings. We have a system of network that we have discovered for almost 8 months of research. The developer of our community came into 2003 when he purchased the property land. Then this developer, this company, then passed into what is called the new sales network, which compiles to what is a real estate companies. And then the same owners of the real estate companies that promote the houses and the same owners on the management companies. Right now, we are facing an HOA board recall, which was submitted in August the 10th. The 30 days that we are pursuing under the nonprofit corporation code has been met on Sunday. And guess what? They haven't announced a special meeting. The HOA board president is not going to report herself because it's not something that is in her interest. And not just that, we also know how the system works. She has, and they have as an HOA board, they have attorneys that are paid with our fees. We are the ones who have to find their own attorneys. And then we want to proceed to the recall because we don't have meetings. We don't have access to the real financial records. We don't know what is happening with the houses. But we know in one case that the builder, management company, the people that are downtown and even business are all connected in the same business network for more than 2 decades. And now if we want to implement the recall, now the 72 homeowners who signed the petition, we have now to find a lawyer and pay with our own money. And the only way that we can pursue justice in our community is in the Superior Court. And it should be in that case, as Mr. Wilson mentioned, it should be a dedicated department from the state that can take the complaints and working closely with law enforcement and closely with other authorities and our local authorities. I have personally contacted our local authorities and they said that there is nothing that they can do because this is an HOA. And I truly believe that many of us who are behind me are in the same situation. Many of my neighbors are right now in the fear of losing their properties. I have 8 homeowners, 8 of them who have liens for over $6,000. And there is one that has already made a settlement. And he didn't know that his liens are still active after paying with cash in the attorney's department. And not just that, the attorney who represents the HOA board is the same one that collects the money, that plays the collection department, and not just that, is the same firm that we're closely with the management company's ordinary husband, with all business related. And last point before I finish here, this network is already in the federal Superior Court with debts recorded for over $4 million. How is the double standard that companies that own money have been in several federal lawsuits can also manage our community? How is that possible that these companies can handle our community? I just wanted to mention that. I know that today many from the community are watching this, and I want to bring a voice to all of those who have lost their properties, but losing their properties, and for those who are going to lose their properties, who knows, probably soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Before you leave, hold on. One question.
Could you, what do they call the new sales? You said a network, it's called a new sales something.
It's a network. So when the builder comes and build and purchase the land, they really bring what it will be the management company, which is already a partnership business related to them. In our case, these are family members. In our case, this is just a change of network. They know specifically in the timeline, and I can provide that records to you, It's a 400 pages that we wrote today. And I will be glad to leave this on your desk today so that your team can investigate. Since we have the research representative here. I think he's I have been doing a research more than 10 years in my field, and I know how detrimentally the masterpiece of everything. So I would really like you to go over all this documentation, because it's not just renters, homeowners who can become homeless. So management companies, builders, HOA board attorneys are completely in the same network.
Yes, thank you. Any other questions? I want to ask the legislative council on the end. You said 72.
72 homeowners have signed the petition to remove the board. And then the time has already passed. It was in September the 10th. We are right now September the 13th. She's not going to recall herself. She has been in the position as a president for more than 3 years, and with a very questionable election that was disclosed in the annual meeting in February, when the former secretary disclosed in front of the meeting that she was elected without the 25% of quorum from homeowners. And this is why we need a legislation.
Yes, and 72 out of how many?
118.
Okay.
The rest of the houses didn't sign, as another homeowner mentioned, because these belong to corporates. And corporates, normally they don't reside in the community.
Okay, we don't address that in this legislation. However, I wanted to know if legislative council can see if we can do another bill or add this to it. Because we need to see which one are you? Okay. Go ahead.
No, you were correct that is not addressed in the current bill, but it's something that we could add a requirement for.
Thank you.
I thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, we have some people who are on the committee that could not get in on the Zoom. So we might need to make sure we have a way to contact you, because they might want to ask you a question.
Absolutely.
An email or some way. Thank you very much.
No, thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay, we have Mr. Roberto Cadenas, right?
Yeah.
As well as Alonzo Williams II. If they all start, Alonzo, make your way for, you'll be next. Okay. Okay.
So,
Thank you.
and just, I'm sorry, my name is David Vizon. I'm sitting in again, for the benefit of Mr. Cardenas, we're neighbors. But I am a CMI, certified medical interpreter. For this, it's not, legal is not my specialty, but he's not going to be getting into legal terms. So I think mine should be sufficient, but that he can have a more expressive voice in what he wants to express. So,
okay,
I will interpret it as he's saying it. Voy a interpretarlo como usted diga.
Okay.
Ajá.
Hi, my name is Roberto Cardina. I live in, the 80 Belmont Parkway, that's right, that's in Newnan, Georgia. I own the house, You know what happened? Because, I had the house, 5 years before, and then any people pass from my house, he put a ticket. I don't know what happened because, the car is parking outside, my property. I never had, a car in this country because I live in, the other state. And then I spent, how much is $4,000 for pay for ticket the car. I can't believe it that. I don't know. I don't understand because I don't have a car here. All the time I have in my house, but he renting. I don't live here. You know what happened? I don't understand. All the time he put a ticket in my house for everything. The last time he put a ticket, for the piece of the wood and the middle of my house. He put a ticket for everything. I don't understand. Nothing. I don't understand why.
Madam Chair.
Hold on, please. One question, yes.
I just needed to clarify the context of what we're talking. I'm missing something here.
Okay.
Or are we talking about the HOA is giving you ticket? You own your home, They're giving you citations for parking
Dando
your
citaciones para el
car?
parqueo, está diciendo.
Right, yes. Yes.
Is it, and you say it's not even your car?
Y dice que no es su carro.
No,
Está-
I never had,
Explica en
car
español,
here.
caballero.
All the time I put a ticket because the car is outside my property. And then he say my ticket, you don't know my property. You know, I spend $4,000, you know, for pay the ticket to anybody, you know, I don't understand that. You know, I can't believe it. That. That's not
¿Quiere
supposed
explicar en
to.
español y yo le
Yeah,
interpreto?
okay, lo voy a hacer en español.
Adelante,
All right.
adelante. Ajá.
¿Te lo digo en español?
Sí. So if you can speak in Spanish, then I'll
Lo
say it.
que pasa,
So the thing that happened,
ellos
they
ponían tickets
would give
en mi
tickets
propiedad.
on my property.
Yeah, the car is outside and
En
the
español,
middle of
claro.
the street. That's not my car. I don't understand. ¿Por qué ellos me ponían ese ticket?
So I don't understand why they gave me that ticket.
Because I don't live here. I don't have a car here.
Was this the police that gave them the ticket?
Puedo aclarar cómo
Yeah,
pasó?
okay.
So, and I've spoken about the situation with him. So the specific situation, and I'll repeat it for you. Voy a repetírselo. That the HOA, in enforcement, when there would be cars that didn't belong to Mr. Cardenas, that would be parked in front of his resident or around his residence, they would give an HOA citation, although the cars did not belong to him or anyone who was residing at that. Entonces ellos le dieron de las citaciones por alrededor de su residencia, aunque
Yes,
no eran no era usted el dueño de los carros. And so y llegaron hasta 4,000.
Yeah. I pay $4,000
And so-
on ticket.
So these tickets summed up to be up to more than $4,000 worth of tickets for cars that did not belong to Mr. Cardenas.
You know, he put a ticket for everything in my property. I can't believe that, you know.
Okay. Yes, go ahead. Mhm.
So let me make sure I understand this. They're giving you citations for cars parked in front of your home, and those cars are not yours.
Yeah, that's right.
And they know the cars are not yours.
Huh?
Saben que los carros no son de usted.
Do they know the cars are not yours?
No. Yo le dije a ellos.
So I told them.
I told, that's not my car. I don't have a car here
Right.
because I don't live here. You know, my property is rent before.
So they didn't do their due diligence to verify that the cars actually belong to Mr.
They're
Cardenas.
just giving him the citations.
They blanket gave him citations, and there's a group, I think a Bible study group that, would gather there. I don't know whose cars they were, but the cars would be all around the block, and they would, because they were in front of his house, they would give citations.
They're just giving him the citations.
Without
Whatever
verifying.
cars are there, they're just giving Mr.
I tell you all the time, you don't know the guy. That's not my car. Why you don't call the police? Take the car. That's not my problem. Somebody parking the car outside, like my property. Why you put a ticket for me? I don't understand.
And then I'll add that the citations in the Belmont Park neighborhood that were given for cars on the street on the February 1st annual meeting, though it was clarified that in the CCNRs, the bylaws and covenants, the rules, there was actually not a stipulation for being able to give citations for cars on the street because it's a public way. We're not a closed neighborhood. So they had gone to the extreme of creating stickers that look like similar to police, like a police sticker that they would put on your car. And they would put the management company, I believe, or the association's phone number and say, you've received a citation, you need to call this number to resolve it, but it's really the HOA. So they're almost superseding their powers more so than just giving HOA fines. So, quería decir algo más? Do you want to say anything else?
No, yo le dije a ellos que pues ellos me ponían ticket por todo. Y yo no vivía ahí.
Yeah, because I was saying that they would give tickets for any reason.
Well, again, legislative council, is that legal what they're doing to him? And does he have to get a lawyer? And I know this is terrible that the HOA residents, the people who actually pay into the HOA have to get their own lawyers and all these fees. Because when I was listening to Mr. David Washington talk about the late fees and everything that accumulated. That's added on to the amount in order to resolve, get your lien back. So they put that money toward fees rather than toward anything else.
Right.
So they're gonna end up, are you leaving? Because I need y'all to speak. You gotta go. Okay. Excuse me, y'all. I didn't mean.
Oh, so he was mentioning, yes, because there had been, as I said, some kind of church that would meet at another house, and that was because of those cars. We've, to your point, Ms. Donzella, we have seen in the cases that we've looked at in our neighborhood that there is, from my understanding, and legal counsel can probably weigh in on this, there is no limit as to what can be charged. There is no standard. We've had people who, for lacking shutters, have been charged $1,600. We've had, just for sending the letter, they'll charge you $4 to send the letter, and then charge you the fines on top of that. And then with the fines, they'll add the letter amount that they charged you and the fine amount that they charged you onto what is essentially your principal. So it's compounding interest. It's interest on interest. Someone was talking biblically. Have you ever heard of usury? That's what I would call it. That's what I would call it. But there is no limit to how their fines are assessed outside of the covenants. But even then, it's very loosely interpreted. So sometimes it gets handed over to the HOA lawyers, and it just goes on from there. Like was said, we have people who have $10,000, $11,000 liens, multiple liens.
Well, we better do something fast, because
agree.
at $2,000 worth of liens, the HOA has the option of selling your property from under you.
May I add,
Yes.
our HOA, their specific modality that they enjoy is garnishing wages. We have a lot of people, I would say at least a third or approaching half of the neighborhood, a lot of people who have liens, and they like to garnish wages. They'll garnish wages all day long.
So that must be in the contract that you signed when you joined the HOA. And I did hear what you said that in order to purchase your home at the closing, they gave you this paper to sign to join a HOA, and you didn't even know what a HOA was. So, they don't tell you in advance, and then you're purchasing your dream home. So you think that's part of the qualifications to do it, and get suckered. Erase that word.
Involved.
But anyway, okay.
And they don't have to notify you about the liens. We've had homeowners that we've looked on public record that didn't know about the liens that they had. And these are liens in thousands of dollars. There's no requirement for notification of liens or even foreclosures. There have been cases in other states where people were still paying their mortgage and
So-
their home had already been sold.
Do you
But
have
this
some kind of
foreclosure-
arbitration? You have somebody you can go sit down and talk to before they put these liens on you?
There is no requirement for that, man. They don't have well, legal counsel can probably weigh in on that because I don't want to speak in ignorance, but
No,
to my understanding,
it's
there's
not a
no
law.
requirement, because
It's
that's
no
the
law.
part of the bill, right? Is that you have to go to mediation to be able to.
That's why I was asking,
Right.
because we want to, in the bill, we want to have some kind of way to mediate this, and ombudsman to be over it, somebody you can go and talk to and work with.
Right.
Because right now, in many condominiums, even they even have a trailer association now, because many people who live in trailers in a community are having even bigger problems. They take their whole trailer from them.
Mhm.
And this is the horror stories that I'm hearing since this legislation was introduced. So we are listening to you today. We well past your 3 minutes.
Okay.
But
Pass on.
we let it go over a little bit since you had to interpret for him.
Mhm.
We appreciate you coming and giving us this information.
Mhm.
And it's not on deaf ears. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Okay. The next person is Mr. Alonzo Williams II. Your mother coming up with you? Sure. Excuse me.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for letting me speak. So I'm speaking more on Bill 125. My mother is disabled and I'm her caretaker. My name is Alonzo Williams II, and my mom is Nancy. And my situation doesn't deal with an HOA, it just deals with landlords. And my landlord said that he was going to work with me for me to be able to purchase the home that I was currently renting from him. Then COVID happened and he changed. And just like many people in Georgia, as COVID affected prices for rents, my landlord did something very similar to me. And my rent portion that I had to pay, because I am with, my mom has assistance to pay the home, it went up by more than twice the amount. My mom is on a fixed income. I work in education and I take care of her at the same time. And we struggled mightily, but we were able to still pay the rent until I got a letter from him saying that he was evicting us. No reason, no rhyme, just, I don't want you to be here anymore. When I asked what his, we were on time with rent, we were doing what we were supposed to do, and he eventually said that I'm going to give the place to somebody else who is able to pay. And so that was my cue to say, so you're going to try and do this for more rent, for which he would not respond. We are currently living in temporary housing because we could not afford the rent. And my housing authority was on the side of my landlord and not on the side of us. The institutions that we have in Georgia and all over the world are supposed to be able to help us when we need help. I'm a very hardworking person, and my mom was a very hardworking person before she got disabled. We should not be the ones that have to be on the short side of a government that is supposed to help us. We want to be homeowners just like everybody else wants to be at some point, right? But if you can't help us just do the basics with rent because you feel like you have to get more money, how are we ever going to be able to get from underneath the weight of renting, right? How can we be homeowners if you won't have any sort of legislation that prevents us from being homeless? Because once you're homeless, it's hard to get back to a home, right? Once you're homeless, it's hard for anyone to talk to you the same way as if you were just struggling with a foreclosure, just struggling to get your rent, right? You have to go from the bottom to beneath the bottom just to be heard. And my mom and I, we know that our housing is temporary and we're going to have to try and find somewhere where rent is affordable, but we just want to be treated like people. I know that everyone who is up there and people who are going to see this later, they all were voted in by somebody. And I'm not going to say that you don't deserve the seat that you have, because I know that you do. But what I would say is, if there's no one here to vote for you, then how will you stay there? If there's no one here who has the house to be in the county or be in the city that you're in, what is the purpose? And I think that, as I'm saying this, I'm getting a little emotional because in the temporary place that we're staying, there are 3 housing developments around us that are being built. And no one in the neighborhood that I live in could afford to stay in any of them, because the houses that I'm staying in were built in 1960, but the house that's literally 10 yards behind where I'm living is going for $300,000, and they're apartments. And I say to myself, how could I possibly stay here? I want to live in Atlanta. I want to be a thriving member of this community, but I'm not being given a fair shake. And I think that this legislation is necessary not only for our senior citizens who most definitely are being put out of their homes, not only for normal working men and women who just want to be able to get by day to day, but for someone like my mom and I, who we don't need the best, we don't need the brightest, but we do need stability. And I think that there's nobody who should ever feel less of a person or less than anyone else when it comes to just being able to wake up in the morning and say, I have a place I can call my own. And that's all that I think any of us want. My story goes much deeper than just Bill 125, but I want to add my voice to this petition that says, in Cobb County, which is where I live, by the way. I know Mr. Red is not here, and I'm like, dude, we need to talk. But you know, in Cobb County, right?
Another meeting, he'll be back.
Cobb County, one of the richest counties in Georgia, can't find a way to help one family that did their job, that does their job on a day-to-day basis, find stable homes. In a city, I live in Mableton, by the way, and a very brand new city with shiny new mayors and representatives who don't live in Mableton, by the way, who say, it's okay. We'll let these practices continue and you'll eventually find somewhere to live. That's not right. And so I want to add my voice to this.
I appreciate you adding your voice, and believe me, you're being heard. And we want to make sure that you've given us a way to stay in contact with you. We don't come back into session until January, so this is not something that's going to happen overnight, unfortunately. But we are going to be working for you. And then if we can refer you to any programs or anything, I'd be happy to do that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alonzo
Williams.
I got you. Thank you. Now we have, which one? Mr. Stephen Davis and then Ms. Elizabeth Apley. And you're both talking about rent control, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon, everyone, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Stephen Davis, and I'm the Government Affairs Director for the Georgia Apartment Association. The association is the voice for the multifamily housing industry in the state of Georgia. Our members provide homes to millions of Georgians, directly employing more than 5,000 Georgians, and businesses supporting the industry, more than 125,000 jobs. Additionally, our members contribute more than $1.45 billion in taxes and other revenue. And every 100 new apartment homes developed generates an additional $384,000 in taxes and an additional 47 local jobs for the economy. While the idea of rent control may appear as an attractive solution to the affordable housing crisis, it is critical to understand its counterproductive and damaging consequences. Rent control continues to negatively impact housing providers and renters alike. National research shows these policies reduce housing supply, lower property values, and decreases the quality of available properties. Research also shows that rent control disincentivizes new construction of apartments, which only exacerbates the housing and affordability crisis. As a real example, in late 2021, voters in St. Paul, Minnesota, passed a ballot measure to enact rent control in their city. This event has allowed researchers to view this data in real time on rent control's negative impacts on development of new apartments when this type of legislation is enacted within minutes of passing. Building permits for multifamily housing dropped by 80% in the city, while her twin city of Minneapolis, which does not have the same restrictions, building permits increased. It may sound simple, but adding additional housing units to the market is the best way to address the housing demand and crisis. Simple supply and demand. Governments at all levels must look beyond regulations, which add cost, and develop legislation that reduces barriers to new construction and expands tax policies to encourage development. So in closing, rent control will lead to a degradation of existing housing stock and a reduction in property values and local real estate tax revenues. Rent control will deter investment in housing stock, which we so desperately need in the state of Georgia. And rent control will not address our supply and demand imbalance and will only exacerbate the deficiency of housing opportunities for all. Thank you for your time.
Take some questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Before that, let me just mention to you that there are different ways to have rent control. So I don't know the cities that you mentioned and how they have gone down in apartments being built, but we are looking at allowing the municipalities and the counties to have some input and not just banning and saying it can't go over 10% ever. And we don't want anything like that. That's not even something that will help the cities. We want to make sure that we're not gouging those tenants, those residents. So that's what that's about.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And we have the board is lit up. So we're going to start with before Representative Thomas. I see we've been joined by other representatives. Want to say hello?
Sure.
And then we're taking questions.
Okay, that's fine. All right, is it on?
I thought it was. Okay.
Okay, all right. Thank you, sir, for being here and just briefly to address those who are sitting here today. Please know that your story has merit. You're here representing those who can't be here. And you're certainly representing your interest in a long-term residency that you hope would be able to be provided in a situation where you are not threatened out of your homes or your residencies. My name is Elmon D. Holly. I'm a fifth-year State House representative member from the great county of Henry, as well as just a little slice of Clayton County there. I have another meeting to go to. I do appreciate Senator James to be able to have this panel here and her distinguished colleagues in the Senate and my friends in the House as well. I just have a very small question, if you wouldn't mind. I understand that certainly in areas that are not highly dense in the size of the apartments or the size of housing, that certainly have a lot of land upon which to build. The downside of being able to have where you don't have any side of rental control there, when you have overdevelopment, when you have highly dense environments, it contributes to smog, in terms of the influx of heavy traffic for those who are living around there. You have it where it's a lack of green space. We know that contributes very damaging effects towards people's ability to actually breathe well. You have it threatens those who may have respiratory issues, and also it just doesn't really grant a place for people to be able to move freely. The mobility may be stifled by having that. So if rent control is not an option, and if expanding the growth of housing projects, if we take that off the table, what might be a feasible alternative that we're not looking at, in terms of making it a possibility where people are able to stay in their houses, but they're still able to afford to live there. Again, taking expansive development off the table.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the question. I think we have to look at the continuing operating costs that are happening right now. Georgia is court reform, one of the biggest issues right now, with jackpot juries driving up the cost of insurance on properties, which drives up the cost that is needed to operate. You also have to look at where the other operating cost of property taxes continue to go up as the property values continue to go up. So you got to look at whatever the operating costs are. And right now with inflation going up as well, the bills continue to go up, and those bills have to be paid by someone. In this case, it is the renter in that case. I guess the solution is looking what does the government control in these aspects? And most of this comes down to the local government control. Property taxes is the number one issue. I do realize they have services that must be provided, but if they can look at, do all the services need to be provided? What could potentially, usually no services ever get cut back. And so your property taxes continue to either, the millage rate might not change, but since your value went up, your property taxes go up. Just looking at what can the local government actually control when it comes to it, and taxes and fees are usually that is an aspect that they can control.
Yeah, thank you for responding. I know this is something that our committee is going to be studying. I have the fastest growing county in the state by, Atlanta Region Commission standards. And I know that the legislature this past year took away the ability for our small local governments to be able to extend a moratorium on building more houses outside of a 180-day span. And what that does do is, while granted it may be great for developers, it does add to extra density on a high density area. And I know that is certainly it runs counter to what maybe local residents were expecting for when they moved into a nice house. Weren't expecting to see houses on top of each other, right? So I appreciate your response on there, and just look forward to working with the panel and the committee in the days ahead, because we have to have some way of doing it. We know that the buck has to be passed down to someone, but we should be smart enough to think of maybe some other alternatives to work. Simply just saying we're going to pass it down to the renter really just shows we have a lack of ideas.
Yes, sir. And with the Henry County situation, and with most moratoriums, the planning phase is what they most of the time are trying to hit. And we did work with Henry County on a multifamily housing ordinance as they updated it, which did add significant costs to the development of communities in Henry County and will lead to increased rents in the county.
Wow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for joining us this time. And any other comments you can send to us in writing. Okay, we have two other questions for you. Representative Thomas next, and then Senator Merritt. And then we'll move on to the next speaker.
Greetings. Thank you for your presentation. I too, like Representative Holly, concur with his sentiments. Let me just say this. I live in the new city of South Fulton. It's a 6-year-old city. Senator James and I both live there. We fought for 10 years to become a city. The reason why we did that is primarily because this was the last area of land to be developed, and we wanted to develop that smartly, and that includes workforce and housing. So in your presentation, you mentioned the key is to not to have rent control, but to increase housing inventory. For instance, in the city, in Seattle, Washington, there is no more land. They're building on top of buildings. They can only build up. In South Fulton, we were the only undeveloped land left in Fulton County. So if the answer is to continue to develop, to create inventory, what do we do when there is no land?
Within inside of a municipality, the answer is go vertical to increase density. Georgia and Fulton County is blessed by being a large area with on the south side, the topography is better for building houses and apartments compared to other parts. I think density supply is the answer to, if you want to reduce the cost of living, you have to supply and demand. That is the answer, is if once supply reaches so high, you will see the cost stabilize and come down. But right now, most local governments are doing the opposite of that and installing additional regulations and installing additional burdens to development. On the same day, a local government here 2 years ago raised the millage rate and increased impact fees on the same day while saying they wanted more affordable housing. They increased both the operations cost and the development cost of communities. So sometimes there appears to be a disconnect between what people are saying and then the policies that they are implementing. Every condition that is put on a new development has a cost. It is not free. Every time that there is a work order that is changed because of something happening, it has a cost and it has to be paid for. Every delay in getting a permit, which I worked with the city of South Fulton right when it was started in a previous job to try to help their permitting department to go through faster. Every delay causes a housing unit to go up. So we've got to look at how can government become more efficient in moving it out. So if you can reduce the amount of time that a permit, and this is local, not under the state jurisdiction, but if a local government can reduce the amount of time that it takes to get a permit, if they can reduce the amount of conditions that are going into a property, I think that will have a major impact in what the final cost of the product is.
Excuse me, but we cannot, they cannot do that unless we lift the ban on rent control. Right now, the hands of elected officials over municipalities and counties have nothing to do with, oops. This thing has a mind of its own, excuse me. Go.
No, sorry if there was any confusion. I meant, as you look at the operating and development cost, the items that are put on a condition have a cost. This is a condition that is put on a rezoning request, has a cost that adds to the cost of the development, which means if you come in and rent was supposed to be $1,000, it's going to add hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars to the cost of the development. And when you're trying to put together your capital stack and bring out your plan, that will add cost that will cause rent to go up. So if a local government is concerned about affordability, then they need to look at what are the costs that they are adding to the cost of the development. And most of the time it appears that local governments are not looking at that. They'll say they want affordable housing, but then they put 40 conditions on a new development that adds hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars of cost. So there's a disconnect between the policy and what's being said.
I understand, but they also is a problem with all of those costs being put on the resident. Because number one, yes, there are going to be some more expensive rental costs. However, to double and triple and even quadruple the lease, when you get ready to renew the lease, something's terribly wrong there. And that's why we were making sure that we meet, we talk about this, we put some legislation in to protect the citizens.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. One more.
Yes, ma'am.
Senator Merritt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think my question has been answered, but my question was, people want to know, why is my rent going up? Why is my rent going up every month? What's happening? So you're telling me the drivers, if I'm understanding you correctly, operations costs goes up for you guys, property taxes goes up. And if I'm not mistaken, property taxes are driven by market. Part of that formula they come up with is driven by market. And then I guess those are the drivers I understand. And you're telling me that the land owner or the owner is not driving that cost in this formula in any way to get more profit. So help me. So yes, hold on. So help me understand how the rent is calculated. What is driving the high rents besides what I just said? What else is there?
Yes, ma'am. Got to look at it in two ways. New development projects, that is formulated based on the cost of the development. So if something's built today, that goes into line with everything that it took to develop the cost of that property. But if you look at a legacy property that's been, I guess, a year or older, as it's leasing up, multiple things go into account. One, the availability of units in the area. What is the vacancy rate? We've experienced record high vacancy rates within the metro area. And a lot of that is attributed to a false sense of vacancy based on that in Fulton County, it's taking upwards of 9 to 12 months to get an eviction. And you have renters in a unit not paying their rent. In other metro counties, it's taking upwards of 6 months to get an eviction where no rent is being paid. So that has to go into the account, the vacancy rate. The folks that work with us, the folks I mentioned that are directly employed by our members, they want increases in salaries, and our members are giving them increases in salaries. We have some maintenance technicians that are making 6 figures to work in our industry, and that is accounted for a lot of that we have to pay our employees to keep it. Everyone's having trouble finding and retaining employees, and when you have that trouble, you have to raise their pay to do that. That also contributes into it. Then there's the regulation inspections that are required that contribute to an ongoing monthly cost for it. Utilities that continue to go up are going into it. And then we're experiencing members whose insurance rates for their properties continue to go up 40, 50, 60% year over year. That is a cost that is insurmountable, but we hope that is something that the General Assembly will take up in the coming session.
So how much profit does the owner get though? Out of all you just said, what percentage of that the owner is still making a profit?
The owner does generally. This is from our national association. For every $1 of rent, an owner makes somewhere between 9 and 10 cents.
Okay. One more question.
Yes, ma'am.
You're correlating supply with is a factor in rent going up. So if we had more supply, the rents would go down.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have data to support that?
You can actually see it as you drive around. If you see a sign where it says we're offering a free month rent or $400 off for this, that shows that it is a offer that is made because the market feels softer in that area and there's not enough renters there, and they're trying to incentivize that renter to come there. And so it is showing that if there's too much supply in that area, then they are trying to get renters to that area. So the higher the rent goes is based on the lack of supply. The more supply you have, you will naturally draw down on what the price of rent is.
Because then it increases competition, in other words.
Yes, ma'am.
Who's getting the
Yes, ma'am. Same with office right now, office commercial properties. When there is a lot of office supply that is out there, you will see the price go down, and it's the same way for housing.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Very much. Oh, one more.
Yes. Just a quick question. Something you just mentioned struck my mind. Just to say, like $1, owners makes only 9 to 10 cents. Is 10%. Is that, do you have any study, anything that been backed up? I'm just wondering.
Yes, sir. Our national association put together that study using national figures, and I can send that to you.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to call 4 names in a row, but come after each other. Elizabeth Apley, then Allison Johnson, then Miss Gladys Lady Dancy. You're not gonna, you gotta go. Oh, yeah, okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, yes.
Yeah. My name is Elizabeth Apley. I'm an attorney and an advocate, and I thank you for the opportunity to be here on such an important issue. I advocated the Capitol to strengthen Georgia law and increase the resources to support access to safe, decent, affordable housing to prevent homelessness. And I work on behalf of a number of different groups. Have to have it. Okay. Enterprise Community Partners Southeast, Presbyterians for a Better Georgia, 9 to 5 Georgia, the Georgia Supportive Housing Association, Georgia Advancing Communities Together, and House ATL. So the purpose of this legislation, I'm talking about SB 125, is to support local control by communities in order to address the challenges that you've heard so much about today, to help people stay stably and safely housed. And we appreciate your attention to this important issue. For over 30 years, Georgia law has recognized, quote, that housing is an issue of paramount concern to this state, which affects the health, welfare, and safety of the citizens of the state and the economic viability and planned growth of its community. That's OCGA 83170. And it also goes on to say that it is the state's policy, quote, to provide decent, safe, and affordable housing to all segments of the population of this state. That's OCGA 83171. Well, we know that Georgia has fallen very far short of that goal. And while the conditions that have led to the current housing crisis preceded for a very long time the pandemic did exacerbate the situation, and it has had a disproportionate impact on certain aspects, certain members of our community. People of color, women with children, seniors, veterans, people with disabilities have been disproportionately negatively impacted. So we know that housing instability is a very serious problem. It threatens the physical and mental health of adults and children. It threatens children's ability to succeed in school, the ability of parents to hold a job. And we know, in fact, from recent research that is Georgia specific, that the effect of losing one's home, of eviction, has a detrimental impact on pregnancy outcomes, preterm delivery, low birth weight, with multi-generational adverse impacts. So 2021 saw an historic increase in rents. A recent article in the Atlanta paper looking at the metro area found that while rent rates had increased between 2.4 and 5.7% between 2014 and 2020. In 2021, they increased by 17.8%. And so keep in mind that even though we see in 2022, the rate of increase was reduced down to 1.3%, the effect of those increases is cumulative, pardon me. So if your rent was $1,500 a month in the beginning of 2021, by the end, you're at $1,767 a month. And by the end of that year, you're paying an annual increase of over $3,200. Keep in mind that most families, 60% of Americans, live paycheck to paycheck. So when you see a massive increase like that, you hear the stories that you're hearing today. So as of April of this year, 14% of Georgia renter households were behind on their rent. That's over 181,000 Georgia households. And we know, as I said earlier, that those rent arrearages don't occur across the board. They disproportionately impact low-income families. 72% of those were low-income. More than half of those households had children. Over 200,000 children are being impacted, and 69% were people of color. At the same time, that average rent debt, according to the National Atlas, is $1,400. $1,400. Compare that to the price that every community pays for each eviction. The University of Arizona Law School did an analysis of what it costs the local community for each eviction that occurs in this state. And it was a very conservative estimate of over $11,200 per eviction, looking only at the cost of emergency shelter, medical hospitalization, emergency room visits, welfare costs, and child delinquency costs. So we know that the cost of eviction, according to that analysis, is 8 times the rent arrearage. It's relatively inexpensive to keep families safely and stably housed, as opposed to the cost of eviction. We know that wages have failed to keep up. We've seen some modest increases in recent years, but nowhere near approaching the increase in the cost of rent. So we have, regrettably, in Georgia, had some of the highest eviction rates of any state in the country, and this has been true for decades. The face of eviction, as you know from the research, is Black women with children who are disproportionately targeted, and they're 2 to 4 times more likely to be evicted than a white person. Having children greatly increases the risk of eviction. And we know that over 20% of foster care placements in this state are due to housing inadequacy. So we are continuing as a community, as a state, as taxpayers to pay the price of failing to address the problem of affordability. Georgia is an outlier in failing to provide even basic tenant protections, which are necessary for families to remain safely and stably housed. I want to mention to this committee House Bill 404, which passed the House of Representatives unanimously last year. I was going to call out Senator Rett and thank him for his support for the legislation in the Senate Judiciary Committee. Regrettably, it wasn't called up on the final days of the session for a vote. That legislation would provide a warranty of habitability. It would require that there be a 2-month cap on security deposits, and it would require a 3 business day notice and right to cure before an eviction can be filed. We look forward to your strong support. We're trying to strengthen that legislation and move it forward to final passage in 2024. You all asked about the issue of solutions, which I hadn't planned to address in my planned testimony, but if you want me to address solutions, I'm happy to go into that. Madam Chair. Oh, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. Not per client, by the way. Okay.
Be my question.
Okay. So, Mr. Davis is right that an increased supply does bring down costs, but it has to be the right supply. What we see overwhelmingly, I'm so sorry, in Atlanta is we're destroying what we call naturally occurring affordable housing. Older properties maybe haven't been well maintained. Those are being destroyed and replaced with luxury units. That does not help the people who we're trying to address who have needs. We need to address the challenges of tenant protections. We are, as I said earlier, a vast outlier in providing even the minimal protections that our neighbors, even here in the Southeast, which are not particularly tenant friendly, have. And so bringing a measure of fairness to the landlord-tenant relationship, reducing evictions is very important. We need also eviction diversion tools. We need emergency rental assistance. There's a small program that the Department of Community Affairs is instituting now in conjunction with Atlanta Legal Aid Society and Georgia Legal Services to use some of the balance in the federal emergency rental assistance funds in order to provide legal services and to help people access emergency rental assistance. The city of Atlanta is working on an initiative to provide emergency rental assistance and to provide, and so that triumvirate of diversion, legal representation, and emergency rental assistance are critically important. We need to increase the state's investment in the construction and preservation of affordable housing. Georgia now has one tool that it utilizes to construct or preserve affordable housing, and that's the state low-income housing tax credit, currently under review by the Joint Tax Credit Panel. So it's critically important that we protect the state low-income housing tax credit, because otherwise there are no state dollars going into construction or preservation. We also need to invest in subsidies for vulnerable populations. There are some populations that need permanent supportive housing. There are seniors, there are people with disabilities. Chairman Mitchell mentioned today's Wall Street Journal. Today's Wall Street Journal front page has a story about the problem of seniors becoming homeless. The highest rate of increase in homelessness is among seniors, and the level of homelessness among seniors in this country today, according to HUD, has never been seen since the Great Depression. And these are people, many of whom have worked their entire lives. They may have worked physically demanding jobs. They are they don't have that safety net that we'd like for them to have. So subsidies are going to be necessary. And the way states that have been successful in investing in the construction and preservation of housing, in providing those subsidies, in providing the flexibility to local communities to address affordability, they've done that through the dedication of revenue. Joe Frank Harris proposed that some 30 years ago. The Housing Trust Fund for the Homeless was renamed and the dedication was removed, but the power of the Housing Trust Fund, the legal authority to create, preserve, invest, grant, loan, all there. We have an 11 billion plus surplus. Let's invest some of that money into the Housing Trust Fund and allow the Department of Community Affairs to spend that in a way that will support affordability. Thank you for your indulgence. Thank you for allowing me the extra minutes. We look forward to being a resource to you, to the committee, as we continue to work on this issue.
Thank you very much for always informing us and the information you just shared with us. I would like to get that because I know it's going to be a lot of people who are listening now who are going to ask more about it. So if we could get a list of it, and I can do research to make sure that those people who need it will be able to help. Is it anything that the couple, the young man and his mother who talked earlier, that they could immediately go and apply for?
Yes. The emergency rental, well, they're homeless, so it's not a you're homeless now. I
Sort of,
apologize.
yeah, they just got foreclosed. Yeah,
You've been foreclosed upon?
So,
evicted.
yeah, we were evicted.
They had the rent to buy, right? And it,
We were going to, yes. But so we're in a house, right? We're in a house right now temporarily. I actually, funny thing, I moved out of the house and he's still evicted and I have to go to court. I forgot that part. It's amazing what you forget when you get into that chair. But anyway, so I actually have to go to court in 2 weeks to defend myself against my landlord who evicted me after I moved out already. So, yeah, if I could talk to you.
Well,
yeah, if you could talk after, because how many more people want to speak? Because I have a big list right here. And I know we can't, okay.
Madam Chair, I apologize. I'm going to have to leave. I'll give the gentleman my card, and of course, when I'm available, I'll get you the citations to the research that I.
Thank you very much.
you.
We appreciate you. Okay, Miss Allison Johnson, then Nancy, Lady, and Lady G. And who is this? Which one? Did the Camp Creek? You're back, okay. Then you'll be right after her. Okay. Thank you. Oh, I didn't see you anymore because you were sitting there. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. I'll be really quick because I too have to leave, but I do want to be here to be on the record. My name is Allison Johnson. I'm the Executive Director with Housing Justice League. We also work really closely with folks in the community, particularly tenants, those both in private or in subsidized housing. I do want to put on the record to say we do support SB 125, and so do so many thousands of folks throughout the state of Georgia. We have formed what we call a Georgia for All Rent Stabilization Coalition. And this is a coalition that brings people from all different regions and counties together to figure out strategically, how do we support getting this bill through the threshold? But more importantly, I just want to say that at Housing Justice League, we do have a hotline. And I just want to say we are inundated to a point where it's really hard for us to continue to have this hotline because of the need. And the need that we are hearing is people need support. People need money to stay in their homes. We have people that are working really hard, 2 and 3 jobs, and just cannot afford the increases of rents that have been placed on them in between their leases. We have people that are calling us because of the conditions in which they are living, and the landlords are still allowed to raise their rents. And so we also have people that are calling us because their parents are seniors and they can know some landlords are not allowing them to remain in a dwelling to be the caretaker of their senior parents. So these are things that are all factors and contributors into people being displaced in our communities. And like Elizabeth said, we work with people who are disproportionately impacted by these factors, particularly Black women. And go down to Fulton County, y'all seen last month, 72,000 evictions. This is just crazy that this is allowed to happen. We know that in the state of Georgia, we have corporate and we have private equity who have come in and have just totally squeezed the market, making the renters so astronomical where people cannot afford to live. And those folks who were once at the point where they wanted to become homeowners no longer have that dream. So I encourage you all to continue to fight, and you have people on the outside that you don't hear, but you most definitely see them in corners and cracks and under the bridges that need this specific legislation passed. We are eons behind other states. And like you all said, there are multitudes of ways to enact rent control and rent stabilization. And we have to do that. We have to do that. We have to discontinue to allow the price gouging that's happening. Our communities are just inundated and we're on the breaking point. And so we need this legislation to be passed. So
thank you so much. Thank you. And Lady G, and what's your name? Because you're on here.
I am on there somewhere, Amanda.
Amanda, you came early. Oh, you're next. You're okay. Well, they're next, and then because I skipped over their names earlier. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. You're very beautiful, by the way. You're writing it right.
To Council, to
thank you,
Senator Donnella James and Chair Dias. I'm here to wonder, is it legal what they're doing to the seniors in my building? I live at Galleria Manor Senior Apartments in Smyrna, and our rent has gone up $300 to $50 a month to $400 more a month. And we're all on fixed income, and they're about to put us all in a terrible fix. Not only are they doing that, but they're making the seniors pay $20 a month to park in a senior building because the seniors have been arguing over parking spots. And some of the seniors are so stressed out. We've had 3 deaths in the past month. And I think that because they are stressed, where are we going at 85? Well, I'm 83 years old, but where do you go from here? And is it legal what they're doing? And we are told we can't do anything because this is private property. But this is senior affordable property. And they're making everybody now market price. We don't get market money. We don't get $350 extra a year, but they want us to pay $350 extra a month. And where do we go from here?
thank you very much. Anybody want to comment to that?
how can it switch from affordable to market? And one thing is a very demanding location. I'm only 2 blocks from the Brave Stadium. I can go up on the balcony and look at the stadium at some of the apartments.
Okay.
So it's very demanding. They need that,
Oh,
that
that's why
area.
they going
It's the,
up.
of course, oh yeah, they're pushing us out, but where are we going? We don't have the money to move like we want to. I moved here from New Jersey 10 years ago, and they have changed management in this building over 7 times.
Wow.
And the new management just sent us a notice 90 days ago that they're going up $350 more a month on our rent. Where are we getting that from?
No justification for how they're coming up with that.
It says market value. I came in for affordable, now it's market.
I call it greed. That's what it is.
Say it again, they didn't hear you.
I call it greed. That's
Oh,
what
yeah.
it is. That's the market price.
Yes, the
What's
market
up, folks?
price, yes.
Unfortunately, sorry. Sorry.
I just
Um,
wanted to bring this up to since it's a
Legislative,
rental control.
can you tell us?
I can't give legal advice, unfortunately.
No.
Department is limited to legal research.
Wait, which one are you? Number?
I'm number 6.
Okay, go ahead.
My heart goes out to you in that situation, but unfortunately, our department is not allowed to give legal advice.
Okay.
However, my friends down at the other end of the table are allowed to give legal advice, but I'm not certain that they can give legal advice to people that aren't members of the Senate or the House.
Well, I'm specifically asking you for what she is talking about. They are in senior living quarters. You know, they have these senior buildings and they go in on a fixed income and then they're doubling their rent, really going $400 more a month. After the 1-year lease is over. So what I'm asking is this legal?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay, legislative council, good. Would you like to?
15. I don't know the answer to the question because I don't know the specifics of the type of unit that she may be living in. Some of this does fall under federal housing law, which I am no expert on. So I would have to have more information in order to give an adequate response.
Look, Lady G, it's not right. I know, even if it is, the law allows
Right.
it. It's not right. So we can talk more about possible legislation. You know, it's very difficult to pass legislation up here, but if you educate the legislators to let them see that you're not just a name on a piece of paper and you come up and talk to them and have petitions sometimes, we do listen.
Right, because when I moved in, this was a new building. It's 88 units and I was number 7 that moved in. So it's a very new building.
Wow.
But in 10 years, it's almost doubling.
But it's beautiful. I know where that building
It's
is.
beautiful.
Yeah, but that's, and
Because
you're,
it's the area is in demand.
yeah, you're by
Right
the
across from the
stadium.
Brave Stadium.
Yes. Wow. And the stadium was not there then.
Was not
Was
there,
not
it
in
was
this.
woods. It was
No.
woods when I moved there.
Right. I remember that.
So if anybody could help me, let me know.
Thank you very much. And thank you for
my
your
time. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Thank you. We have. We need to come up, let's see, where are they? Ms. Richards, and do you want to come up together? And for the record, please state your name. And we have our representative that borders that area.
Okay.
Okay.
For the record, my name is Micah Richards. I am the CCV sitting president for the HOA board.
Hi, and my name is Tracy Bonner, and I am the Camp Creek Village Townhomes Secretary, HOA Secretary. So go ahead.
All right, so essentially, we're not on the eviction side, but more so on the HOA I guess maybe some sort of legislation to govern HOAs. Just like the young lady spoke earlier, well, I would say a new-ish development. The original developers, I guess they left. That's another story in itself. Rockland came in, they were the new developers, but they were also the declarant over the HOA. We had a large pot of money prior to Rockland taking over, but of course, because they purchased the majority of the undeveloped lots, they have the controlling vote, i.e. control over all of our money. So now when they move out, let me back up. Also, in control of our money, they hired another community association company to manage our funds, which is also their company. So now they control our funds, and the company that manages us also is owned by Rockland. Once they left, of course, they just left. They left us in shambles. We created our board, but there's a lot of money that was missing. In reviewing the documentation, they used a lot of our HOA funds for developer type issues, erecting fences, just monuments, all types of things that the developer is supposed to cover. They used our funds to do so with. Also, we are platted as a private community. I don't know if you guys can hear me.
No, we
Okay,
can.
so we're platted as a private community. So they were supposed to install a gate. We have no gate, but we're still considered private. So we get no support from the city of South Fulton for any sinkholes, infrastructure issues, array of things that we need assistance with. So we've just been kind of left, in shambles, so to speak. Go
We
ahead.
just want to make sure that the city officials are doing proper inspections. For example, our infrastructure is very poor. We have drains that are above the ground. So the water stands in our yards, causing erosion. And because we're a private community, we are responsible for fixing the erosion, which costs thousands of dollars. And so those kind of things have to be done when we're bringing inspectors into our communities. Our city officials, not inspectors, developers, our city officials should have proper inspections throughout the entire process to make sure these things are being done, because now we are being required to pay for this. And we only have 103 homes. We're a smaller private community. And every time we try to get the city to take over our community, they come in and do an inspection and say, well, you have to fix your curbs. Well, these curbs have been here since 2006. We've gone through 3 different phases of developers, and none of them fixed these things. And now you're requiring.
Yeah, they were
us-
able to get their bond back from the city, though.
Yeah. And so we need to make sure that they don't get their money back until the homeowners and the residents are being treated fairly and taken care of in their communities.
And as a trickle down effect, like she said, a lot of our issues are pretty pricey. In order to cover those, we have to increase our HOA dues. Now, there's a large percentage of our community that already can't afford the HOA dues. So now we're tacking on more dues, which is going to trigger evictions and all of the other things that you guys were discussing today. So it's just a trickle down effect when we don't have proper oversight of the HOA / the developers that are coming in and doing city developments.
And, 2 other things that we have issues with, just making sure that these corporations that come in and buy up properties and have renters, we need some kind of legislation against that, because they're not requiring their renters to follow our covenants. Illegal street parking, they don't pay their HOA dues. And then a lot of these corporations do not reside here in Georgia. And so it's very difficult for us to get someone to come in and enforce some of these rules. We have to find a company on Instagram and reach out to them that way, because they didn't have, we went on their website, they didn't have a number that we could find them. So we had to, and that's not my job. I'm an actor. I don't have time for that. So I don't have time to chase down homeowners for HOA dues and things like that, violations. And then another thing, we have issues with our community improvement districts being brought into our HOA districts, but they're not dealing with certain zonage. For example, we're zoned in front of, behind a plaza that has clubs. And
Nightclubs,
our
3.
homeowners have kids who are staying up 2, 3 in the morning because these clubs are zoned improperly in front of our communities. And so we need some help with that as well, because the plazas, the community improvement districts are not willing to work with the homeowners. Got an email today saying just that, so.
And then the last thing, which is going, I guess, back to the other 2 individuals that spoke about increasing, or what I want to say, increasing housing essentially in development. So I am a real estate broker. I own a real estate brokerage, and I work with developers in the city of South Fulton. And I can just attest to the difficulties that we have. I have one developer that was awarded funds to build affordable housing for seniors. We can't get a permit pass in the city of South Fulton. It's been 2 years.
So the city of South Fulton does not have senior housing then? Oh, one, yeah.
Well, this particular developer,
Okay.
the one that I have been,
And the only
been
one
working with.
that I know of is right there behind that Publix on 92 and South Fulton Parkway.
Well, we just have the land. We haven't even been able to get to doing any development because we'll send in things. They'll say, okay, do this, 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 and the next. Then we'll do those things. And then they'll say, oh, we'll do this, this, this. And we're like, well, why didn't you tell us the first time when we submitted this? They're like, oh, well, do this and we do that. And so it's just a back and forth with just trying to get approvals to give affordable housing to residents of the city of South Fulton. So just kind of a 2-part situation we're
I
dealing with
understand.
here. Yeah.
And I'm really sorry that it worked out that way, because I actually authored the legislation to create that city. And then many years later, though, because we had to keep working on it over the years, and it did finally pass. And then we worked with trying to put the city administrators together into departments.
Yeah.
And that's entirely different from what the committee had put together for them. As soon as the city council persons and the mayors got elected, they changed all of that.
Right.
So the questions that, the concerns you have, we have to address on the city level.
Correct. They have to just have a smoother process of being able to transact business in the city of South Fulton, because it really does hinder. I have clients that have been waiting for homes for 2 years that have paid their money, and we can't get through permitting in the city of South Fulton.
And then you have a friend too that wanted to put.
Yes, I had some issues having a permit issue, some other businesses in South Fulton before.
And
Been resolved by now, but it took a lot longer than I'd expect.
Right.
They had purchased the land, started building on it, and couldn't get the permits. And most of them had to wait like months and months of just sitting there in the property, and the structure that they had already built was sitting there vacant, empty, being vandalized. So there are a lot of problems that need to happen. So, maybe we could all sit down together with the city.
Okay.
You did, when I first met you, both of you, it was unfortunately when the young man was killed by a drunk driver at that.
And we've had 4 accidents since that.
Oh my
since he's
God,
passed
no.
away. Yes, we
Right
have,
at the
and
corner
they
of
still
Camp Creek
haven't
and Butler.
changed anything.
That's a few blocks from my house.
Right.
And that's where my son got killed when he was a teenager.
They did work on the light, the turning light, but nothing else has.
Right, I noticed that. Wow, we are still working, they're still working on trying to get that done, but that's DOT and that's under the state.
Right.
So that way I can help you directly when it's more of a state issue. But the issues now, the reason we introduced the legislation on HOAs and then the other one on lifting the ban on rent control is to make sure that we take care of the residents that are having the same problems you
And
have.
with the HOAs, they definitely have to have some sort of oversight or restrictions. I don't think that it's fair for the developer or to be the declarant over the HOA. Who's looking out for the residents? Because like I said, after they left, they ran through our money and now we're just sitting here and they're gone.
And we had to go through all of their spending and expenses to find, I think like at least $20,000 of our money that they use to do things that they promised us when we signed our contract. So we need better oversight over that. There's just, I mean, because we're not official board members at that time,
Right? We can't do
we
anything.
couldn't look at the finances, so we could only take our community manager's word for it.
Did
So-
you have a question, concern?
Well, I just wanted to mention to you, Madam Chairman, that House Bill 630, which was sponsored by Representative Lim of the 98th, would have it didn't pass, but it had taken into account some of the things you're discussing. And again, our office is nonpartisan, so I can't say, well, this is a great bill or this is a bad bill, but just that representative's bill talked about how
So it was House Bill 630?
yes, ma'am. It was the End Monopolies and Housing Act, and it proposed registering some of these corporations that own properties with the Secretary of State, so that if you wanted to know what corporation went and owned a certain property.
Is that bill still alive or it died in the legislature?
The final disposition was it was second read in the House. I'm not quite certain.
Okay, so no, it's not moving. However, you can look it up.
In monopolies and what?
The End Monopolies and Housing Act, it was HB 630.
This year. That's this year, correct?
I think it had been reintroduced.
It was reintroduced this year, so that means it's still alive. Okay, you want to say something, Senator? Yeah, okay.
So do we have any legal recourse? Do we have any recourse dealing with these developers who come in and, they got some sort of approval from the city to get their bonds back. So where does that leave us as residents?
Maybe we can ask our legislative council. Do they have any recourse? Oh, I had 14, sorry.
That's okay. Again, I think this is a situation where I would need more details about the specifics of your case to be able to advise what potential recourse there is.
How do we get in contact with you? Because we have people.
I'm sorry, but I can't provide advice specifically to you, but if you get in contact with a member, the member can ask questions generally about the state of the law.
And when we go to meet with her, we can take you with us.
Okay, that sounds
So,
perfect.
perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And-
Any other
Thank you, everyone.
questions?
No, what
Okay.
about you, since I know this is your area, this is Carmelita Gomes is the
Yes.
city
District Two.
council. She's doing a great job and other things. Say it again.
think Representative Bruce did.
And, oh yeah, Representative Roger Bruce.
Okay.
So we'll try to get in touch with them, and we need to stay in touch then, so we can during the interval before January,
Yes, ma'am.
we can deal with your issue now and see if it's something we can do.
Okay. Do we have your email? Do we have your contact?
James. Oh,
I do.
Okay.
I have it.
you do have,
I have it.
he's my administrative assistant, and I got my chief of staff in here and my aide.
Okay.
Elena, you want to talk to him, make sure they got my numbers?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. What's your name, ma'am?
Sierra.
Okay, we're gonna have you to come up now.
Okay.
And then after that, who else is? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
You're already here.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
So I
I'm sorry, I want to refer back to my notes. I'm up here, and I play a dual role. And I wanted to piggyback a little bit off of what, I think his name was Mr. Washington said. I am, a resident of the city of South Fulton. When I moved to the city of South Fulton, it was Atlanta. I am now the tenant of the home I once owned. The corporation who came in and bought a lot of homes in this subdivision, bought homes, while homes were in loss mitigation. When I purchased the home, I was 21 years old. When I first purchased the home, I was 21. I literally, because of my childhood issues of being evicted and being homeless and our family living in shelters down here, I started saving at 15 years old. And I was able to purchase a home in the Pittman Park subdivision at 21 years old, only to have a corporation come and knock on my door to tell me that they purchased my home from the Fulton County court steps. Wow. Yes, wow. No, it's for mortgage default, but I was literally on a payment plan in loss mitigation. So I don't know how that took place. However, when they came to my home, they told me that they purchased a home on the Fulton County court steps, and I had two choices. They can evict me or I can become a tenant. And because of my childhood trauma, I did not want to become evicted. I became a tenant. And when I became a tenant, unbeknownst to me, because at that time I was young, next month will be 15 years I will be there in that home. When I became the tenant, I did not know that I was in a binding contract where I could no longer voice my concern about the home being wrongfully foreclosed, because the contract is binding. And essentially what I said was, I'm aware of the foreclosure, but I was not aware of the foreclosure. I never got a sell date. So fast forward to becoming a tenant. Now that I know more about it, I've been seeking to regain the ownership of the home. But since I've been seeking to regain the ownership, the landlord has been filing vicious eviction notices to evict me because the property has went up. When I moved to Camp Creek wasn't Camp Creek. It was not as developed. The price is triple now. And I live off of, I'm in Pittman Park, so that's off of Butner Road.
I know where it is. On Pittman.
Oh, okay. So yeah, so you have to get to my subdivision there.
You're my neighbor too.
Okay. So to my point, as far as being an owner and previous owner and tenant, Georgia has nothing that protect borrowers. And now that I'm a tenant, Georgia has nothing that protects tenants.
The tenants bill of rights, isn't it? You familiar? But the tenants bill of rights. We'll find out.
So there's some things that's there. But it's not enough. I wasn't protected on either ends. To my point, as far as the tenancy is concerned, because I'm literally in court right now, fighting a stay until the wrongful foreclosure part is done. But I wanted to bring up, as far as the rent control is concerned, being a tenant, there are hidden fees that is in addition to that I feel that should be governed in those leases, because the rent can go up, but then you have the flexible month-to-month fees. And I'm going to refer to my lease. And I'm just going to assume that a lot of leases could be this way because this company is an enormous company. You have the flexible month-to-month fees. You have legal fees in which they tack on. So if you go file an eviction in Fulton County, when you file that eviction, okay, so some of the evictions that were filed were false, right? You have to pay a $200 legal fee. But if you go down there and you recall that eviction, the landlord does, you're paying double the legal fee. Well, that should never happen. As a tenant, I shouldn't be responsible for paying double the legal fee for something you filed and then you came back and you recalled, particularly if you filed it viciously. So my lease has the month-to-month fees, the legal fees, a continuation fee, and I'm referring to a ledger that they submitted to Fulton County, to the eviction courts, the fluctuating late fees, the master policy admin fees, and then there's hidden fees that's just coded that's on the ledger. So there are layers of fees. So when you're saying I'm behind on rent, what's included in this are all of the other fees that may be over $1,000 that just should not be there. And it's there, so the courts is there, but it's not there in the lease. That's a problem because the courts are not, they're not going to go that far in depth with it. What they'll expect you to do is to have an attorney. You can't even appear pro se and be respected as appearing as pro se. You need an attorney. And if you have the attorney, they're not digging that deep because the judges, it's landlord friendly, just being honest. I've said on many cases besides mine, but it's landlord friendly. So the objective is let's come up with an agreement. So you want to stay in a home or you want to pay all of these additional fees. You want to stay in a home, pay all additional fees, or just become another number and risk being homeless.
Wow, well, we're talking about three pieces of legislation today. And foreclosures was not a part of it, but clearly all of the problems that you're having are a part of what is going on.
Yes.
So we do need to look at the legislation to see if we can incorporate anything that could help your situation. But
Many people, I don't mean to cut you off, but many of us, a lot of us are going through this. And it's just not, it's if you go to the court and you're expecting the courts to protect you, their protection is not there. You know what I'm saying?
Wow. Well, I thank you. I'm gonna see what we can do. We'll record it and we'll try to do what we can to help. And if you want to contact us again, individually, then I think that we could let you talk to Dory Henry over here, my chief of staff, because she knows about the leases and the foreclosures and evictions and all of that. So Dory Henry, you want to make sure that she has your number. And I thank you for coming today and staying with us. And we have 10 minutes before they're gonna throw us out. So we have, how many more people did not speak? I know Amanda and who else? The other people left in the back, on the back row. Okay, please come up. I'm so sorry it took so long. Let's see, where it happened to, is Judy Eccles and Shar Bates. Charlotte, did she have anything in writing that she wanted to leave us? She has the same concern you have?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And if I left anybody off, it's because I don't see your name on here. But Amanda, I know you came early
Yes, ma'am.
and you've been very patient. And our list got tossed around.
No,
So
it's quite all right. I
Mhm.
understand how that goes. I
Okay.
appreciate it.
thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Of course.
Thank you. And please let us hear your issue.
Okay. First of all, before I begin, I want to say that everything that everybody has said today is well known and par for the course in what's known as HOA hell. That is what I'm here to speak on, is SB 29. My name is Dr. Amanda Dutton. I'm an independent researcher, a Georgia resident, and a consultant for the HRLNG. That's the Homeowners Reform League National Group, which was mentioned by David. Those of you concerned about HOA reform, please look us up on the internet, HRLNG. I'm here to show my appreciation and support to the committee and sponsors of SB 29. I'm here because we want our founder given rights back The current structure of HOAs allow them to knowingly and willingly deny American citizens their constitutional and human rights. Not all HOAs abuse their power, of course, but those that do have created horrific situations that you've heard of that have leave American citizens with ruined credit, devastated finances, and in homelessness. Sometimes because those people only painted their home the wrong shade of beige. I know of an association operating contrary to Georgia code specifically. They were informed and they did not care. They also, this association also is known for not giving new homeowners contracts. So people buy these homes and are bound to this association without even knowing. The only thing that residents can do in these situations is to sue. This can cost thousands of dollars, and if you lose the lawsuit against an HOA, you have to pay their legal fees. Some people have legal fees of up to 60, 80, hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's not right. The whole system is a racket. Fraud, corruption, and abuse is intolerable in anyone in a position of power. From people in the humblest positions to the highest office in the land, it is intolerable. Yet many of us suffer these conditions from our own neighbors. It must end. I read from the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it. It must end. We must alter it. SB 29 is a first step in that direction. I thank everyone here for their efforts and dedication to protecting and restoring the promise of America to Americans. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions or comments?
Well, comments, all this heartbreaking story, Thank you for coming in and educating us. As I'd say before the session, begin, like you all to continue to email us, meet us, and individually, and I'll be glad to, and I'm sure all of us will be able to listen to you a little bit more details. And I know we had three different bills, but to me, it looks like to handle some of this issue, we might have to, instead of putting it in one bill, we might have to have one, big bills, or maybe piecemeal. I don't know. We have to figure it out. We'll do our best how we can provide some relief to our citizens. That's our duty, and we're going to do anything that we can do within our power to help our citizens. And I thank you for or to all of you that participate today. And it was really educational. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. It is appreciated. And just so you know, I am an academic and professional researcher. It's part of my independent research right now to inform myself on this whole situation. Again, as an objective academic with professional research. So I'm happy to contribute. I am planning perhaps putting together a lecture circuit that I'd be happy to I don't want to say test out on you, but it's to share, let's share with you and to educate the general population, because many people don't understand what's happening.
Well, it looks like we have a really good advisory committee, if you'll be a part of it. And the young man right here and two other people who we've talked to, including Mr. David Washington. So we would like to talk again, even if we do it on a conference call.
Yes, ma'am.
So make sure we have your contact information. And please know that we're going to use this information to do something in January.
Thank you.
To address these concerns.
It would be my honor to serve and contribute.
Thank you so much. And Mandisha Thomas, our state rep, thank you for staying with us and being with us this whole time today. I know you came to just to speak to this group about your concerns. So thank you very much. And thank you all of our members, and especially Emmanuel Jones, who's on the call watching us. We were streaming. He's been watching us. They would not, somehow we couldn't get him in to ask questions, but he's been texting me. So I know that he's still with us. Thank you, committee members of the Legislative Council and research. And we got to thank the media. Yes. Because they kept us on when we were scratching. But thank you again. We are going to officially adjourn this meeting. And we do have one other since we did not address the hospitals associations, we have to have one more meeting, maybe in November. We do have to address the fact that we have to get a hospital in metropolitan Atlanta area. And hopefully by the airport or either in the downtown Atlanta area. So this committee, Urban Affairs, thanks you for being here.
Thank you.
You're welcome.